Welcome to Quick Shots, a short format traditional archery podcast, where we introduce you to some of the world's most influential traditional archers, and occasionally, some random dudes. I'd like to send a big shout out to our sponsor, Archery Pass. For all your trad archery products, Archery Pass, making archery's past part of your future. ArcheryPass.com.
Yep.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Quick Shots. I'm your host, Mick Chambers. I'm here with NuSensei, David, out of Australia. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Okay, this is not typical. Okay, so typically it sort of is and it sort of isn't. So we'll play this out and see how it rolls. Everyone knows NuSensei on YouTube. If you haven't seen his channel, I don't know what you're doing. He has great content. Like not great, amazing content. He's helped to teach millions of people how to be an archer, really. And you know, David does typically Olympic style recurve, but he also dives deep into a bunch of different types of traditional archery too, right? And so that's my introduction, my quick introduction of you. But I want it in your own words, please. You know, how did you get started in single string archery and just give us your background on your history in archery.
So I was never a sporty person. Like as a kid, I was a bookworm, a gamer, still am, and the appeal of sport was never there. Like I was never into cricket or football or whatever sport people play. Like I just wasn't me. And when I was working, well, there's I work. I'm a teacher firstly, and there's a club and a range like literally right across the road, and I never knew about it. It's very low key, small local club, as many clubs are. And one of my mates said, "Hey, do you want to check out the range next to your school?" And I went, "There's no club next to my school," and there was. And we turned up. Actually, funny story. The first day we turned up and we didn't know there wasn't running that day because the coach was running a session for coaches somewhere else. So my first exposure to archery was literally the club compound guy dry firing his bow. That was our very first experience of archery. And then we came back the next week and we did the usual come and try session. And that's your typical bare bow, instinctive shooting, trial by fire sort of thing. It was a really fun first time experience, and that was kind of when I got that hunger for it, as we do archery.
Yeah.
And for me, I still remember distinctly because I was the kind of person who I guess is perfectionist. Like I like doing the same thing over and over again, whether it's drawing a piece of artwork or playing piano or whatever it is. It's like this repetition is something I'm very comfortable with. And archery it is repetition. It is literally doing the same thing over and over again until it's perfect.
Yeah.
And that clicked well with me. It was a sport for someone who doesn't like sports. It's like being antisocial with people around you, and it was actually really good because it allowed you to be you. It was very individual, and it's something unique with archery, which very few sports like can capture. And when I promote the sport to people who are coming, hey, why do you do archery? Why we do it so long? It's the same thing. Look, it's the sort of thing which I could do by myself. And I own every mistake. It's not like I can blame my opponent. It's not like I'm playing a tennis match where my opponent's trying to make me lose. It's every good shot is me, but also every bad shot is me. And I grew very quickly to like that side of archery. If nothing else, it's that ownership, which really attracted me. So I'm, as you said, mostly was at least an Olympics allies. The last 2 years have been kind of weird because the asterisks, what's been happening the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But when I did archery, like with many people, I had this perception of what archery was, and that's from like TV shows, books, and all that. Very medieval style, traditional longbow sort of thing. That's the only archery I knew, and that will influence a lot of what I do online. It's kind of working with that mindset of this is what they've seen. This is the pop culture archery. So when I did bare bow, okay, bare bow is archery. It's traditional. It's the bows are still wooden and you're still shooting arrows, and it feels good. But of course, being an Olympic style club, my coach automatically pushed me to Olympic recurve. And that was getting a few steps away from what I thought archery was. Because you're going from, okay, I'm thinking of like Robin Hood longbow, and you're seeing this middle chunk in your hand with like things sticking out. And I'm like, this is really not what I thought archery would be. And I guess many people go across this dilemma. And the two choices are either you do it for a month and you drop out of it and you have this bow sticking around for no reason, or you adapt to it, you adopt it, and you grow to like it. And for me, I actually started to really like Olympic archery, because it's a, we'll probably talk about a lot more later, but it was the sort of thing where you can focus on very specific parts of your process. It's a very structured way of shooting. And even though it wasn't what I thought archery was, it's something I also grew to like. This was the more competitive, sporty style, which for someone who was younger, I never got. And when I won my first club competition, I won the club championship with Olympic recurve. That was like the first like moment of glory, I guess, the first achievement, first sporting achievement, first medal, first trophy. For someone who never did sport, that was like, wow, I can actually do this. I did it myself. I wasn't carried. I wasn't lucky. It was legitimately a first achievement. And that's how I really got the Olympic archery. Was like it was a default choice. It was like, here, buy this bow. Okay, sure. And I've been kind of pushing it since. And after I got into Olympic archery, that's when I diverged and tried different kinds of archery. And there was always room for traditional for trad archery, both Western trad archery and Asiatic thumb shooting as well. And that's kind of where the more recent, like 3-4 years, I was able to live out what I thought archery was, and found myself enjoying both the modern style of archery and the older traditional historical styles of archery as well. So
So
that's where I am now.
yeah, you heard it here first. NuSensei mastered Olympic style recurve, so he said he had to push into other spaces. Go into the traditional, make it harder for yourself because Olympic is too easy for you. Uh, that's what I took out of that. No, obviously, that's such a growing path. It's interesting you said that, and the way you broke it down. I'm actually going to talk about your shot process. You talk about this all the time on your channel and in specific videos, but let's talk about your shot process. Give us the Olympic shot process, and then let me know how it differs from when you have a trad bow in your hands.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this literally yesterday. That was why yesterday I shot like 10 hours just to remind myself how to shoot properly. And it was it's such a very different mindset, because when I speak to people through my work, through my online work and all that, people say that archery is very relaxing. Like they don't think of anything, it's very instinctive and so on. It's very, very common kind of feeling. And when I do archery, I'm like, that's the complete opposite. I'm like super tense, super focused. I'm paying attention to everything. Like, how do you relax? Like people literally say, I do archery after work to relax. I do trad archery to relax. I do Olympic archery to stress out, and that kind of reflects the differences in the process. And there are multiple ways of approaching Olympic archery, but the way I've taught, this is from Coach Lee, the current US coach.
Yep.
And it was the idea of being hyper focused on specific steps, uh, which is very conducive to good, consistent shooting, which runs almost in the face of almost instinctive trad archery, where it's as simple as possible. Olympic archery, you pay attention to every single step. Some people think of it as being unconscious in terms of your shooting. It's more of being subconscious, where there are things like, it's not like you have a blank empty mind. You actually have things in the back of your mind, but you're focused on something else while these other things happen at the same time. So you do pay attention with every single shot. And of course, with shooting, you do hundreds of shots per session, per week. And you pay attention to every single detail, because if you don't, then things will lapse. Your stance will be slightly off. Your hook will be slightly off. The pressure slightly off. And again, with trad archery, we're doing casual fun archery where there's no real success criteria. I'm not saying that trad archery is easy, but when the success criteria is more vague and you can say, oh, I missed a shot, I don't really care. If Olympic competitive archery, if you miss a shot from an 8 to a 9 or 9 to 8 rather, then you lose the competition. And you can't afford to have these lapses. So okay, if your pressure is slightly wrong in your hook, then your shot's gonna be off. If your bow grip is slightly wrong, if it's wrong position, the pressure point's on the right place, these things creep in. Firstly, over the first few shots in the whole session, then the whole week, then it becomes a chronic form problem. If your shoulders aren't right, if your expansion isn't right, if you that millimeter off the clicker, that isn't right. So you're taught to break down each part of your shot process one by one, not to ignore it, but to make sure that everything's right. And everything's a green light. When I coach people, I use green lights. This is green, this is green, this is green, shot is good, keep on going. And that's kind of what I'm thinking of each part of the process. That's a kind of a vague way, but depending on what I'm feeling each day, it might be today I need to focus a lot more on the push or the pressure. So pushing forward on the bow to make sure no collapse in the shot. Another day might be I need to focus more on the anchor point because it's starting to get loose now. As my coach says, you're trying to bust through it. So I'm going to close the anchor, keep it tight, and so on. One session might be look, I'm not paying attention to my sight picture. Let's be very focused on that. And then it assumes that the rest of your shot foundation is good. Because if you focus on one thing like the sights, but your shot is terrible elsewhere, it doesn't really matter what you do. So when I coach people, part of what I do is I identify what is the most crucial thing you have to fix right now. And people say, "Oh, my release is bad," and I'll go, "Well, it's actually not that bad. It's only bad because you're too focused on it." Is that how do people say, "Oh, I should focus on release"? What does it make sense? Like release is meant to be like a casual, relaxed thing. You don't focus on release, so it's not really something you can really focus on. So you focus on something else. I'll say, okay, so don't focus on your release. Focus on pushing forward to finish the shot, to go through clicker, finish the shot with your front hand. And the release is beautiful because they're not thinking about it anymore. It's now subconscious. It's always good. But because now they're thinking about it, then it gets bad. So that's kind of what I break it down as each part is a separate component, which must be done consistently, and you put it all together in your shot process.
But let me
Now,
challenge you.
yeah.
So do you not think that in a trad archery, even instinctive, that they're focusing on all those different piece parts as well and trying to not develop bad habits?
I think with trad archery, this is where things differ when I was doing trad is with trad, you focus on different things. Obviously, the tools are different. So you don't have the same sight and stabilizers and all the checks and balances. I think that's really what's different. With Olympic archery, you have a lot of checks along the way. So I think the crucial tools, the sight, of course, is a very crucial tool with Olympic archery. But you have, of course, the clicker. So it allows you to forget things and push forward other things. So it's a more complicated tool. I think a lot of the mystification of trad archery versus Olympic modern archery is, trad archery is harder. Olympic archery for many people is harder because there's so many more steps in the process which you have to pay attention to. Yeah. Trad archery, they're kind of things you do as part of good form, but you don't pay attention as much because you're not punished as much. The success criteria is not quite the same. You're shooting 30 to 50 meters. If you get a grouping, you're good. With Olympic archery, if you're not like this close in your grouping at 70 meters, then you're having a bad day. So with trad archery, things are more forgiving. It's more punishing because if you don't do it right, then obviously it's not going to go anywhere near as consistently. But it's a lot more forgiving because you don't have to think as much. Because a lot of the shots can be broken down to anchor point is good, shoulders are level, you're using back tension, and your release is clean. It's a much simpler process with fewer steps, which is what people find more enjoyable and more relaxing. When I do trad archery, I'm like, this is cool. I don't have to think anywhere near as much. I still have to concentrate. If I don't hit something, I've got to focus and intend on my aiming references. If I'm doing gap shooting or if I'm doing instinctive, then focus on the target. but it allows you to focus more on the shot itself, like the feeling of shoulders aligned, back tension, clean, smooth shot, the oomph of good shot. I felt really good. Olympic archery, that's only part of it. It's more like, well, everything's supposed to be aligned to the millimeter. Trad archery is much the same thing, but you focus more on the, I guess when we say the shooting itself, it's like the draw, the back tension, and the release. That's probably, I think, more of what we get the kick out of trad archery. Whereas Olympic archery, it's like 10 other steps which you must get right before you get the oomph part.
No, I take your point. I totally take your point. I think what's happening, here in North America, trad archery is competitive. So, like for example, Lancaster's about to have the Lancaster Classic, which, there's going to be a bunch of trad archers there. They're going to be gap shooting at paper, 20 yards. And they're trying to get, we're not trying to get 300s. We're not doing Brady Ellison 300s, but they're shooting 270s, with trad archery, and that's trad archery. And so people are taking it to that nth degree and taking it to that Olympic style recurve level, club level. And you're right. And so I'm agreeing and disagreeing with you. So I'm agreeing with you because a lot of the majority of trad archers are exactly what you said. It's a feel for me. It's how I feel when I shoot the bow. It's how I feel. If I'm comfortable, I like the looks of my bow because my bow is beautiful, right? I'm going to shoot better just because the feeling, they got that feeling. It's like, that makes no sense, dude. That's no sense. Like the looks of your bow has nothing to do with how well you shoot, but it does. The feeling that you get, right? So David, I'm completely agreeing with you. But then on the other side, there's this other side that's being very competitive. Barebow obviously is very competitive. And the scores are going up and up and up, especially in Europe and here in North America. So it's been incredible, the growth of barebow. Have you seen that? Have you experienced that?
Oh yeah, I fact it was back the I think it was Lancaster. One of the winners was the Aussie Archer. So
That's
it was
right.
no, exactly. And the best competitive shooters are really good. The huge gap between a casual recreational fun shooter, with some takes it very seriously, and the shot process is also very different too. You go from calm, peaceful mind to I am paying attention to what I'm doing. So I think it's more of a spectrum as to how much attention to detail you're focused on. I think the more you care about the results, the more you care about each step of the process. So, and you're right, it does lean more towards competitive Olympic style shooting, where there are, there's a science behind each part of the process. The archery is both an art and a science and a craft.
Yeah.
Same with teaching, funny enough. But yeah, like a lot of people love the art of archery, where it's like the look and feel and form. But again, there's a sports science side. And if you want to be balanced and push yourself to shoot as best as you can, then it's worth looking at both sides, both the art and the science.
Oh yeah, completely agree with you. So I think you avoided my question just a little bit. Your specific shot process. Are you just saying it's basically it's a
Yeah,
KSL?
it's like I said, it depends on what I'm doing. So with my Olympic archery, I again, like I said before, it depends on what I feel is most necessary on that particular day. So I will go through each step. So the pre-draw, the setup phase. I'll be during. I guess we'll break down to the pre-shot. I guess the during the shot, the draw release.
How about this? How can you apply what you learned in Olympic recurve to some of our listeners that are trad archers? What are the things that if they're trying to get, they're trying to get tight groups, they're trying to hit tens. So
yeah,
how can you get better?
Yeah, so I'll break down to like basically, let's say before the shot and during the shot. Those are my two basic processes. So before the shot is when you check that everything is right. So your bow grip. So as you pick up the bow and you knock your arrow, and before you draw, like we have this point of no return, I guess, where you commit to the shot. Yes. So before the shot, you want everything to be set. So in Olympic archery, we call this the set position, funny enough. And a lot of people rush into the shot. I mean, when I watch people shoot and I give online coaching, it's the same thing where they'll mindlessly pick up arrows, knock and shoot, and not really think about what they do. There's no real process, and which means that any mistake, you've got to identify where it comes from. And a lot of the mistakes you find in shooting come from before you shoot. So again, your grip might be off, your pressure point might be off. So when I shoot, I'll pick up a bow, I'll get my grip right, I get my hook right, I get my shoulders level, and then I can focus on setting up, getting shoulders aligned. Especially one of my issues of shooting, and trad's funny because things creep into trad that you don't see in the Olympic, because Olympic you have checks and balances. So I tend to creep forward a lot when I shoot trad. I tend to have collapse stick when I shoot a full draw, because there's no clicker. So
Yeah, yeah.
Olympic style, you go, oh, hold there, squeeze, and click, you go off. Trad's like, oh yeah, I've got to actually hold the thing up. So anyway, so that's one of the small things. So for me, it's actually front shoulder a lot, because I tend to have a rising shoulder. So I tend to overemphasize pushing the bow down compared to like many other artists, because of course you tend to. I think the trend these days, especially with learners, is you tend to hold the bow in place and then you pull it back. So it's very kind of rear hand focused. So you tend to lift up when the shoulder comes upwards. And I'm kind of part of that mindset. So I have to like push down, keep the shoulder down, and just make sure my shoulder's right. Because
Nice.
yeah, if I don't, then that's gonna start being sore after a few shots, and I'll know I'm doing it wrong. Hopefully not get injured too. So for me, it's a very front hand focus, and it's funny enough with Asiatic thumb shooting, a lot of it is front hand activated compared to rear hand. So that balance is something which I overcompensate for, just because me personally, I tend to lean backwards and kind of have more rear hand bias. So I push more on the front hand. So that's before the shot. Everything is level. The draws right. The muscles you use are the right ones. If the back muscles, guiding the shot of your elbow, and just having a good form. So that's the pre-shot. So if it looks good, then it probably does feel good. And then there's the whole what do you do a full draw sort of thing, where everything just melts
Please tell
together.
me. Please tell
I
me.
know, right? So I get for me, I focus on firstly a very tight anchor. That's one of the loose elements which slips a lot. You know, especially when you're getting a little tired, you don't pay attention to exactly where anchor is,
Yeah.
and you fall into habits. Like it's especially when you start shooting heavier bows, 40, 50 pound bows, you feel at full draw and then you let go. Like, oh, I'm here now, gotta let go, gotta let go. It's like, no, relax, just chill. So I try to do is I try to feel a strong, solid anchor. If I'm doing Olympic archery, it's down the jawline, of course. If I'm doing a trade archery, it'll be on the cheek, on the bone, or somewhere here. Somewhere it's not as soft. People talk about like skin or mustache, and I'm like, yeah, that's a bit too
Yeah.
too loose here. We have a loose definition. So I try to get, if I'm shooting badly, let's get this right first. This is most likely where things are not going quite right. This is drifting, it's dropping, it's getting loose. So my coach will literally grab a head, just like punch me in the face, just like literally get it right there. And it's good memory. Like just literally punch us in the face. Like you got to feel it, because people tend to be afraid of it. It's kind of like, well, if it's lazy, you get lazy after a few hours of like, yeah, just shooting. And I guess especially with thumb shooting as well, because there's no real anchor point. You're anchoring past your ear, so you feel more like. For me, it's I feel the feathers tickle my cheek, like tickle. I'm in the right place here, so that's kind of where it is. So people anchor differently with thumb shooting, but for me, it's the fletching. So if it tickles here, that's probably a good sign. So that's kind of what I think about mostly is the anchor point. And the second thing I'll think about with the release itself is that push motion. So again, for some shooting, it's a lot more active, where you are pushing towards it to activate your khatra, which is the bow flick, the bow twist.
Yep.
But with Western archery, it's more of a gentle like push pull, which is what we teach, more the push side. Because the pull for me, the pull is fine. It's just the push is I'm lacking in that sometimes. So I'll push for the bow, and the release happens by itself. Because with Olympic archery, with the NTS or the Kisikli system, there is no aim step. There is no release step. It's expand and then follow through.
Right.
It's a continuous motion there. So there is no I'm here. Now I will let go, which is a big source of target panic for a lot of people. Again, like when you reach full draw, what do? You can't say release. You can't say let go, because that's too much of an active motion. You're like, let go. And then you see the whole hand come out and hand drop down, and it goes everywhere. So for me, my last step is it's expand. So you focus more on the muscles, or the motion of squeezing your muscles, your back muscles together, and then it's followed through. That's what I learned from Coach Lee with Olympic archery, and also I'll carry that through with trad archery. And when I was talking with our teachers of Asiatic archery, of Turkish archery here, there was pretty much exact parallels in traditional archery. It's the same sort of thing. There is no real release step. You think about the follow through, and the release happens by itself. So that's my breakdown vaguely. There's the pre-shot, which is everything before, where I check almost everything's right. Stance, posture, especially posture. We get lazy, we start leaning backwards.
Yeah, or forward.
Chest position, shoulders are level. And again, when we get tired of fatigue, having a bad day, we've got to reset and make sure each shot feels the same each time. And then there's the shot itself. During the shot, if I'm shooting again with gap shooting, I'll pick my spot very carefully. I will take more time to aim during that shot process, during that gap shooting, and then it's the last thing I think of mine is expand and follow through. It's mostly expanding, because you get to the point where I'm now expanded and the follow through happens by itself. So I don't really have, I don't really teach an active release step. I think the less you think about the release, the better. The release will happen, but you, like I said before, with the subconscious mind, you're thinking of something else to focus on, and these other things will happen by themselves.
Interesting. So there's a bunch of different ways, and that, thank you very much for that explanation. That was really good, especially coming from an Olympic, someone who's very competitive in Olympic, and then bringing it over to trad. Let's shift gears a little bit. So that was real serious, and so I got a quick question for you. Where does NuSensei come from? Where'd you get that name from? And for our listeners, NuSensei is the name of your channel, YouTube channel. And again, get over there if you haven't subscribed. It's freaking awesome. I think you have like 1,000 videos up, and there's probably like one bad one. No, I'm just.
No, there's probably more than one bad one. It's like 1,000 battles you don't see. No, it's a lot. Like people say, like you've been doing actually for 10 years. Like really? Oh yeah. Okay, we count the last 2 years. It's been 10 years of YouTube. Nearly 200,000 followers now, plus like 1,000 plus videos. You simply lose track. Like people make like 3 and they get fatigued. I'm like 1,000. Like, oh wow.
No, I know. I don't know you do.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Right, yeah. So the origin story. So the word NuSensei, it was originally intended to be a reference to my job as a teacher. Sensei
Right.
in Japanese is teacher, as many people will know. And I originally, because in Australia, we refer to our teachers as like Mr. last name,
Yeah.
Miss last name. So in many places it would be the case. So originally, I want to call myself Mr. Nu. And the Nu comes from, funny enough, my timetable. So we generate a code for each teacher based on their initials. My last name is Nguyen, Nguyen.
Yeah.
But of course, it's a 2-letter timetable, so they derive their initials from their names in some form. So it could be NU, NE, NY, NN. So at the time, my timetable initials were NU. So when I was thinking about my name, I thought, you know what, I don't want to have a name which people can't pronounce or can't spell. So let's just simplify it, make it an easy brand name. So I used Nu, and originally meant to be Mr. Nu, like MRNU, just keep it nice and short. That was taken. So I went, oh man, this is the hardest part making a channel. How do I think of a name now? I mean, there's 1,000 videos, but the name, it's like, you know, when you buy a bow,
Yeah.
yeah, you can choose whatever you want, but what card do I pick? It's like stressing out. So it was mostly like, what do I call myself? And I went, you know what, Sensei means teacher. There's NuSensei. It comes off the tongue easily. People just say Nu or Sensei. It's really easy to work with, so it's stuck. So it's a bit of a weird kind of origin. It's for a brand name, a fairly, you know, circle of getting there. But in the end, it gets what people want. It's got a nice ring to it, and people will just call me NU for short. So
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Hey, we're getting close to time here, but I do want to know something personal about you. Like, I mean, we see you on the videos and stuff like that, but you know what do you do for fun? You obviously live in Sydney, Australia. Yeah.
Melbourne, actually.
Melbourne. Sorry, Melbourne. My bad. I'll edit that out. No, I won't edit that out. So you're in Melbourne, Australia. Okay. And tell us something about Melbourne, what you do, what you used to do before pandemic, obviously. is there anything else you do for fun other than archery? Or
For fun, I'm a bit of a gamer myself, so I'm a
cool.
computer gamer. But for me, I don't really think about fun. Like my identity is as a teacher first.
Okay.
People ask me like what I do, so I'm a teacher first. Archery comes very much a distant second place,
Wow.
which is something which people have to contend with. Like people expect a lot of me because I'm a professional archer, I'm a coach and all that. Really, I see myself as a high school teacher
Oh,
making
okay.
archery videos. That's my
What do you
first and
teach at high
foremost
school?
thing. I am a history teacher
Oh,
primarily.
really
Uh,
cool.
yeah, so I teach, and sometimes I bring the bow to shoot people. Oh, no, I don't. But I'm a teacher first, and this is what people love to. But people have a weird time to kind of comprehend the fact that I'm doing this as a hobby, and that's something which when it comes to like really testing times like the pandemic, where I have to choose where to allocate my time, resources, and energy. Teaching comes first. And that's unfortunately one of the things which helped me back with archery is my dedication to teaching first and foremost. So when it comes to say, train for competition or bring the kids out to a debating competition, it's the kids first. If it comes to getting work done for school versus getting work done for the channel, it's school first. That's always been my personal priority. If nothing else, I'm a teacher, and that's kind of what I identify with the most. Fun, yeah, I'll play games, I'll read, maybe watch a movie or two. But I think most of my life to find my primary career as a teacher. That's kind of what I bring with archery as
That's
well.
fantastic, dude.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. We need great teachers, and that's amazing that it's such a here in the US. It's even it's my brother's a teacher. My sister is a teacher's aide. And those guys, in Canada. I'm from Canada originally. I'm living here in the United States now, but they treat them like professionals. They're professionals. They're 100% professionals. He gets paid like a professional, and yeah, I talk to teachers here in the United States. They don't get paid the way they should get paid, right? And I don't know how Australia is, but I hope you guys are doing well, because I really do respect teachers, and especially someone who says, I put the kids first all the time. That's my identity. That's pretty amazing, David. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Teaching all the new kids coming up. So that's awesome. So with that, just remind everyone where they can get hold of you and talk to you, ask you questions.
Now, obviously, the channel is there. So NuSensei is the channel. I'm also active on Instagram as NuSensei and Facebook as NuSensei as well. I do have a Twitter account which I don't use in the bottom of that, but most of NuSensei, just Google Archery, you find me.
That's true.
Pretty much, it's a pain when I'm researching. I keep finding myself like, this guy, man, far out. But yeah, you find pretty easily. Feel free to send me an email or shoot me a message on social media, and I'll have to talk.
That's awesome, man. Thank you very much for hanging out with us today. Thanks everyone for visiting. Hey, want to thank you again. I want to thank you for jumping on really quick. It's guys like you, creators like you, that are helping out creators like me in the community. So really appreciate you. Thanks again. Take care, everyone, and be safe out there. We'll talk to you soon.